You checked the weather app this morning. It said clear skies. You left the house without a coat, without an umbrella, without a second thought. And now you're standing in the middle of a flooded street, completely drenched, wondering what on earth went wrong. That moment of betrayal is not just yours. It is happening to millions of people across the United Kingdom right now. And people are absolutely done staying quiet about it. For decades, official weather forecasts were treated like gospel. The Met Office, National Weather Services, and the big-name weather apps all carried enormous public trust. People planned their weekends around them. Farmers made decisions based on them. Emergency services relied on them. But that trust is now cracking wide open. And the reasons behind it go much deeper than a simple bad prediction. Let us start with what is happening on your screen right now. Headlines are flooding the internet every single week. One outlet screams about a 400-mile rain bomb sweeping across the entire country. Another promises an exact date for a scorching heat wave that will shatter all records. A third warns of a catastrophic storm system heading directly for your town with devastating consequences. These headlines are everywhere. They spread across Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp in seconds. Millions of people read them and genuinely fear for their safety. Then the day arrives, and nothing happens. The sky is gray and a bit drizzly, exactly as a normal British day tends to be. No rain bomb, no catastrophic storm, no record-breaking heat, just another ordinary week. And the people who canceled plans, called in sick, or stayed home in fear feel absolutely foolish. The Met Office itself has had to step in repeatedly to correct these wild and irresponsible claims. They have publicly debunked headlines about a 492-mile rain bomb. They have corrected stories predicting temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius across England when the actual forecast showed mid-20s. They have pushed back against promises of an exact date for a Spanish scorcher heat wave that no real long-range model was actually supporting. These were not small errors or honest mistakes. These were dramatic, fear-driven stories deliberately built on single weather model snapshots taken completely out of context, stripped of any scientific nuance, and published purely to generate clicks. And here's the thing that makes this even more infuriating. Long-range weather forecasting does not work the way these headlines suggest. When a model run 5 weeks out shows warm temperatures on a specific date, that is not a forecast. That is one data point from one simulation out of hundreds. Real forecasters use ensemble models, meaning they run the same calculation hundreds of times with slightly different starting conditions to build a probability picture. No responsible meteorologist would ever take a single model output and declare an exact date for a nationwide event. But that is exactly what these websites do every single day, and millions of people believe them. Now let us talk about something even more alarming, because the problem is not just tabloid weather hysteria. The official systems themselves are under enormous strain right now, and the public has no idea how serious it has become. Across the Atlantic in the United States, the National Weather Service has lost over 550 staff members since early last year. Key radar technicians who service the instruments that track incoming storms have been dismissed without cause. The teams that fly Hurricane Hunter aircraft directly into storms to gather the precise data needed for accurate forecasting have been cut dramatically. Weather balloon launches, which happen twice a day at around 100 offices nationwide and feed critical data into forecast models, are now running at a fraction of their previous frequency at many locations. Experts say the agency is operating at roughly 30% below full staffing levels, the lowest in decades. One former director described the state of the organization as looking like Swiss cheese. Another used the image of driving on bald tires. You might travel 1,000 miles without a problem, or you might not make it 10. All of this is happening right as the most dangerous weather season of the year approaches, and the people who are supposed to warn the public about it are stretched beyond breaking point. Back in the United Kingdom, public fury has turned directly onto the Met Office app, which received a major redesign update in late 2025 and early 2026. The backlash has been extraordinary. Thousands of real verified users have left scathing reviews describing the updated experience as a complete disaster. People are reporting that the app forces incorrect locations on them that cannot be deleted. They're describing missing features that they relied on for years, including the surface pressure video and barometric chart that experienced users need to interpret changing conditions themselves. The new design, described by users as dark, gloomy, cluttered, and impossible to navigate, has stripped the app of the very tools that made it genuinely useful. One reviewer wrote that they were genuinely furious. Another said the forecast accuracy had become borderline wrong for weeks on end. A third asked why, in 2026, they were being forced to use something worse than what existed years before. These are not just complaints about aesthetics. These are people saying they can no longer trust the tool that is supposed to keep them informed and safe. Now add social media into this picture, and the situation moves from frustrating to genuinely dangerous. Extreme weather social scientist Kim Clocko-McLean has studied this problem extensively. Her research shows that when people are repeatedly exposed to nothing but worst-case forecasts, they begin to lose trust over time. And that loss of trust does not just produce frustration and eye rolls, it produces something far more deadly. It produces people who stop acting on real warnings when a genuine threat is actually approaching. Meteorologist James Spann, who spent 37 years as a broadcast meteorologist, said he received more hateful online messages in a single month than at any other point in his entire career. His offense was posting a link to a page about rumor control during a major storm event. Within minutes, strangers were sending him deeply threatening messages. Other meteorologists have been publicly accused on social media of deliberately steering hurricanes towards specific communities. Some have received credible threats of violence for doing nothing more than accurately reporting the track of an incoming storm. Think about that for a moment. The people who are working hardest to keep you safe are being threatened because a misinformed public no longer trusts the science that is trying to protect them. And now artificial intelligence is accelerating the collapse of public trust even further. A growing wave of AI-generated fake severe weather outlooks is being shared across social media platforms. These fake warnings are designed to look almost identical to the real official warnings issued by national weather agencies. They carry the same color schemes, the same map layouts, the same urgent language. The National Weather Service has issued explicit public warnings about this trend, stating clearly that these posts are putting lives at risk. The concern is not just that people will be fooled once. The concern is that repeated exposure to false alarms will cause people to become numb. And numbness during a real emergency does not just cause inconvenience. It kills people. Here is the painful and deeply frustrating irony sitting at the heart of all of this. Modern hurricane and storm forecasting is more accurate today than at any point in recorded history. 5 days before Hurricane Milton made landfall in Florida, forecasters had already predicted its track to within 12 miles. 12 miles across, 5 days of atmospheric chaos. That is a level of precision that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. Hurricane Helene forecasts were equally remarkable, with the National Weather Service warning communities 400 miles inland about record-level flooding long before the storm arrived. Back in the 1980s, a storm forecast issued just 36 hours ahead was typically inaccurate by around 230 miles. Today, that same forecast is accurate to within 57 miles. The science has advanced enormously. The technology is extraordinary, and yet public trust in that science is collapsing at exactly the moment when it is needed most. The story of BBC weatherman Michael Fish has become a symbol of forecasting failure for an entire generation. On the 15th of October 1987, he reassured television viewers that reports of an approaching hurricane were nothing to worry about. Hours later, the great storm tore across southern England and Wales with winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. 18 people died. Around 15 million trees were destroyed. The damage was catastrophic. And that single moment of misplaced confidence became a cultural reference point that the British public has never forgotten. But here is what is different today. In 1987, the forecasting tools simply were not good enough to catch that storm in time. The failure was a failure of technology. Today, the failure is entirely different. The technology is exceptional. The science is sound. The real failure is that the information ecosystem surrounding the science has become so loud, so dramatic, so deliberately dishonest, and so saturated with fake content that ordinary people can no longer tell what is real. Weather touches every single part of your daily life, your commute, your weekend plans, the safety of your children walking to school, the decisions of farmers, construction workers, pilots, and sailors. When you cannot trust the forecast, you cannot make informed decisions. And when a genuine, life-threatening storm is approaching and you have been burned by false alarms so many times that you no longer take warnings seriously, that confusion is not a minor inconvenience. That confusion can end lives. So here is what you can actually do right now. The next time you see a dramatic weather headline promising an exact date for the worst storm in a decade, stop before you share it. Ask yourself which website published it and whether it has ever been accurate before. Then go directly to the official Met Office forecast. Look for the actual warning level they have issued. Read what trained meteorologists are genuinely saying, not what a content farm has written to maximize engagement. The real scandal here is not simply that some forecasts got it wrong. The real scandal is that the line between genuine life-saving warnings and content designed purely for clicks has almost completely disappeared. And until the public learns to tell the difference, millions of people will keep paying the price for it every single time a real storm rolls in. There's one more layer to this story that almost nobody is talking about. And it might be the most important one of all. Weather forecasting has always been a public service. It was never designed to be entertainment. It was never meant to be a content business. The original purpose was simple and serious. Give people accurate, timely information so they can protect themselves and their families. That mission has not changed. but everything around it has. The business model of online weather content is now driven entirely by engagement. Dramatic headlines get more clicks than accurate ones. A story about a 400-mile rain bomb gets shared 10 times more than a story saying moderate rainfall is expected in northern regions on Tuesday. A prediction of record-breaking heat gets 100,000 views. A calm, measured forecast explaining a probability range gets ignored. So websites, social media pages, and content creators have learned to chase the drama, not because it serves the public, because it serves the algorithm. And the algorithm does not care whether you prepared for a storm that never came. It does not care whether you ignored a warning because you had been fooled too many times before. It cares about one thing only, whether you clicked. This creates a genuinely dangerous feedback loop. Dramatic content spreads. People consume it. Some of them are frightened unnecessarily. Others become so used to false alarms that they stop taking any warnings seriously at all. Real meteorologists try to correct the record, but their careful, nuanced explanations never travel as fast as the original sensational headline. The damage is already done. Scientists have a name for what happens when people stop responding to repeated warnings. They call it warning fatigue. And it is one of the most studied and most feared problems in emergency management. When a community has been told repeatedly that a catastrophic storm is coming and it never arrives, the day a real catastrophic storm does arrive, people stay home. They do not evacuate. They do not prepare, because they have stopped believing. The consequences of that fatigue are not theoretical. After years of increasingly dramatic weather coverage across the UK and beyond, surveys show that public trust in weather warnings has declined significantly. People are more likely today than at any point in the last 2 decades to dismiss official warnings as exaggerated. And that shift in public attitude happened precisely because the exaggerated content online trained them to be skeptical of everything, including the warnings that could save their lives. This is the real cost of the weather site scandal. It is not just frustration. It is not just wasted plans or unnecessary anxiety. It is a slow, systematic erosion of the trust that emergency services and official forecasters need in order to do their job. And rebuilding that trust, once it is gone, takes years. Sometimes it takes a disaster. So the next time someone shares a headline about the biggest storm in living memory or an exact date for catastrophic flooding, remember what you now know. Remember that the science behind real weather forecasting has never been more sophisticated. Remember that the people doing that work are under enormous pressure, understaffed, and facing public hostility they do not deserve. And remember that the content designed to frighten you is not there to inform you. It is there to profit from you. The storm is real. The scandal is real. And the only way through it is to stop feeding the machine that created it.